Sunday live here with the Average Joe Sports Show, the Iron Horse. It's serious time. The hat's on backward, like over the top. Bill Doleman, Pride of Fairbury, is in. Elijah Herbel saying no to afternoon golf with me so he can watch his Denver Broncos. Chris Schmidt, good to be with you. Did the extra hour help you sleep it off last night? You woke up this morning, it was still 21-17 SC. We'll talk about it. Let's figure out Nebraska football moving forward. If it is the TJ Lateef era, these last three ball games.
Era.
Well,
wow.
Just a minute. This TJ Lateef era, these final three games of 2025. Or we can just say the Lateef, what's a better word than era? Experience. We'll do that. We'll get your comments in the stream. Appreciate all of you for joining us. Like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show YouTube 7 days a week. Find us on Twitter, AJ Sports Pod, AJ Sports Radio. We were doing Real Red Reaction, Sharpie, as things got really interesting on the diamond with a classic Game 7. So a mixture of Husker fans and SC fans all standing, elbow to elbow watching that drama unfold. Thank you, Tiger Shark Diver. I guess I'm not intentionally trying to sound like the late, great Hulk Hogan, but brother, it was a tough one for Nebraska last night, and a lot to get into from a game management standpoint, having your number twos ready and ready to go.
Very on-brand comment here from Negative Mike. That's a negative comment.
Wow.
Yeah. Negative Mike says, I am not
down
a
to your
fan
billing.
of Rule. Just extended a contract for a guy that can't even manage a game. What a bleeping joke. There's a lot of that. I get it. There's disappointment. There's still that wondering, Sharpie, of when's this going to happen, dude?
Yeah, it was deflating. There was a lot that happened last night that is the same as it's been for 3 years or this season, that you're just hoping that you can find a way to get away from that. I would say deflating, disappointing, fan base exhausted, a little bit of anger. But the reality is all the things about game management, not being stellar in the trenches, your margin of error is so small with this team. Whether you have your starting quarterback or your starting tackle, or you have to go to the backups. And it just, there have been moments in games like this of late where Nebraska's had a chance to seize it and they haven't been able to. And it's either they can't get out of their own way, or it's a decision, or it's some indecisiveness. That's the thing about last night. And Nebraska's got a third quarter issue that is persistent in the program this year. Is there's something about the third quarter where they don't come out and they don't throw a hammer down, and they had an opportunity. And that third quarter last night was choppy. On both sides. But I thought that if Nebraska getting the ball first after the way the first half ended, if they could have put any points up, even to make it 17-6, you force USC to throw the ball. And Maeva did not throw a lot of catchable balls last night. Nebraska did a really good job in coverage until the fourth quarter, when things kind of just, everything started to snowball. I don't know. It's one thing after another. It looks the same. Kudos to the fan base, man. They showed up last night. The athletic department put on a show, and it just another one of those things where, it looks all too familiar.
Well, the ultimate what if that you're going to walk away from this game is it was Andrew Marshall makes a fantastic play on the interception where he's showing blitz off the corner. He drops into the flat, makes a great play on the ball, gets an interception, sets up the offense. And then you turn it over and Dylan gets hurt, and you ask the what if Dylan stays healthy and Nebraska punches one in there, or at least gets 3 points on the board, you have that what if question. Because yeah, you're right, Gary. USC could not throw the football. They kept Nebraska in that football game by throwing the football.
Yep.
And by playing from behind, they would have been throwing the football around more, and you felt really, really good about Nebraska's chances to go and win. In steps TJ Lateef. And the question that I have is that an offensive coordinator that didn't trust a freshman, or is that a freshman that was not ready for the moment, that was not prepared to go in and operate that offense? I don't think we know that question. I doubt TJ gets thrown under the bus. He's stepping into a really, really tough moment. He shouldn't be thrown under the bus. But that's the question you walk away with, because that offense changed completely, and you could tell there was a lack of trust from the offensive play caller and the quarterback's ability to go out and run the offense.
That's probably a good way of putting it. There's a lack of trust probably all around, not just in the lack of trust with the freshman quarterback being out there, and Holgorsen didn't trust him, didn't trust the rest of the offense to help him out if they were going to go a little deeper into the playbook. I said this last night. He should have been better prepared for it anyway. Where is the preparation and practice that when you get out there in the field, it's just more reps? Instead, it's like players like TJ Lateef appear to be getting their reps in game. Granted, practice reps and game reps are different. I understand that. But if everything in practice is going to the starters, not just the starter, then how are you developing? This is a developmental program, remember? Developmental program, stood on the podium, November 22nd of 20, whatever it was. We are going to develop players. Well, it just can't be we're going to promise recruits when they come in on the recruiting visits, we're going to develop you into being an NFL player. That's a very, very difficult thing to do, make it to the NFL. So why are you not developing players in practice so they can help you now and worry about that development later? That's not just on Lateef, it's all the other young players that are getting just spot duty or spot reps here and there when they should be getting some meaningful game experience so that when duty calls, they can at least call some more plays than what Nebraska was limited itself to last night.
Well, I think the Lateef thing aside, I mean, there aren't a lot of programs where the backup quarterback's getting reps in practice in USC week.
Well, there aren't a lot of programs around the country where the backup quarterback comes in and you feel like you're going to go win that football game.
Yeah, there's the thing. So the major thing that changed is there's some things Dylan can do. Well, Dylan completes a middle screen to Barney, and that puts you in the shadow of the goal line just beginning the fourth quarter. But I think there's some things that Dylan does coverage-wise that he sees that they can change, that they give him a multitude of plays when they bring in a play compared to Lateef. I also think there's the part of he was a little bit sketchy. Not sketchy is not the right word. He's a little bit skittish because there were times on the RPO that if he keeps the ball, instead of handing it off to Emmett, he's got a big chunk of change. But he also hasn't played since September. And, they do run a little bit of a different offense when he comes into the game. If you look at his two previous games, they run a little bit more split back. They run some different things. They were not prepared. This team is not good enough to all of a sudden flip the switch to a backup quarterback and change your offense in game. They just had to work with an inexperienced quarterback who had a key fumble. But guys, put the Lateef thing aside. This game, this month, where you have Matt Rule is now 1-8 in the month of November. This is a trenches league, and Nebraska couldn't win the trenches consistently last night. They couldn't stop the run between the tackles, and then when they wanted to run the ball, it took Herculean efforts from Emmett. I mean, it's frustrating last night because a lot of the stuff that happened last night, whether it be usage of timeouts, indecision of if you're going to go for it or not, being beat down in the trenches, you can't stop the run. All these things are the same they've been all season long. They just have found a way to win. But give credit to USC in the fourth quarter, guys, and really throughout the game. USC did a really good job last night. Lincoln Riley is good at cutting you on the run game. So they were running counter. They didn't run as much toss as I thought they would do. But they also just lined up and they won gaps. They just beat Nebraska's ass in the gaps. And they spread Nebraska out so much that then they were looking at a three-man front and they could just abuse that. But they also did another thing last night in this game where you thought that Nebraska would have an advantage. And if your quarterback goes down and your tackle goes down, okay, we're going to win this category. USC did a good job last night of eliminating Nebraska's special teams impact.
Sure. Mm-hmm. That was an emphasis by Lincoln Riley. Just listening to some of the comments from the rewatch last night. I mean, it wasn't Emmett. It wasn't the secondary. It was Nebraska special teams. The first thing that Lincoln Riley highlighted and noted with Nebraska. And we go back to that 4th and 1. We go back to the sack fumble injury for Nebraska last night. But I mean, it's just been a common theme with you get up on somebody and there's just no knockout shot for this football team. And they've won some ball games in tight fashion. And then they lost last night. So that third quarter, though, you're at your own 35. You're at the SC 36. You're at your own 40. I mean, short fields. My take on Latif is he wasn't ready. He came in and tried to give her hell. I mean, with his legs, they were afraid really to let it rip with the playbook pass wise, and you were just down, and they just had minimal urgency or what can we call here with 3:20 left to go win the ball game from the 4-yard line. I mean, it was just they felt defeated a little bit. There's also I think a little bit of lasting memory, and I've seen this in Rule's time. You go back to his first season, right, where you had the pick in the end zone. I think it was against Maryland, and then the following week Nebraska goes a little conservative against Wisconsin. Yeah. You fast forward to this year, what happened? Well, you don't take the points against Michigan. Instead, you call a timeout and said, well, I better take the points from 52 yards out versus that 4th and 1, figure out a way to get a yard and keep the drive going. I think I'm trying to mind read here, but there might have been part of that in the back of coach's mind when it came to a critical call. You got to be right. You got to be right in those big moments with whatever you call. If you're going to call for a field goal in 38-degree weather, you better hit it. And that's the expectation. What's riskier? Nebraska's 4th and short conversion rate this year, or going for it from 52 yards out with your kicker that missed last week. So Nebraska picked wrong last night in some key moments, and lesson learned, unfortunately, a hard lesson learned with either the freshman's point in this season of grasp of the offense or the coaching staff not getting him ready for that moment. The guys, Dylan's been sacked 1 billion times this year. You had to, God forbid, anticipate this moment was going to happen at some point where Latif was going to have to finish the year.
Well, at least finish the game. I mean, we've talked about it for several weeks. Why are you not getting him or any of them? Again, this to me, it's not just Latif. That's just the most notable because he's the backup quarterback. But you can go with all the injuries along the offensive line that we've been talking about as well. Why isn't it there? Who's next man up in those positions? And there are supposed to be some really good young offensive linemen in the system. Then let's start plugging and playing the best they can. I'm not saying that they're going to go in there and play exactly like Pritchett does or any other starter along the line, but develop the talent that you have so that when the opportunity arises or the emergency arises, they can play serviceably. I'm going to go back this aside to play calling. The key moment for me in the game was in the first quarter. Nebraska marches down and has one of the best drives of the Matt Rule era. Goes up, crowds into it. It's the perfect start for Nebraska. They go 3 and out. USC goes 3 and out. Nebraska goes on a scoring drive. Nebraska's second drive was pedestrian at best. In fact, it was so pedestrian that it got run over in the crosswalk. How is it that Nebraska's play calling did not capitalize on the moment and put together more than just a 3 and out? That to me was one of the most significant moments of the game, and that was with Dylan Raiola, and that was with Elijah Pritchett being healthy. I'm not putting it on those guys, but I cannot believe that Nebraska did not maintain momentum and have some more creativity for that second drive when they could have really started to dismantle USC. Instead, they we had three and outs between the two teams in the first 4 possessions. That was a key moment in the game where the play calling was bad. Yeah,
this is a Dana conversation. Nebraska hasn't gotten the return on investment, and we don't know the whole story. Is Dana caught in the Satterfield offense that he can't get out of? He came here, and his reputation is being creative. I don't see a lot of creativity, guys, in his first full year as the offensive coordinator. You don't see a lot of pin and pull. You don't see a lot of mesh. They're a little hamstrung not having a super mobile quarterback. I mean, there's no way Dylan could have been able to do what Maeva did last night. And Maeva, that's a weakness in Nebraska. is a quarterback run game, and USC picked their spots. But back to the offense, is there's not a lot of creativity, and that's what Dana has been known for. There's no, we already know there's no air raid, but just the different type of stuff like shotgun on 4th and 1 in the red zone. What are we doing here? It's almost like they have to have guys just pull plays out of their ass to have success. It's the third straight game. They've been under 300 yards of total offense for the last 5. And my God, if they didn't have Emmett, this offense would be so clunky. You're right, Bill. That opening drive, you didn't have to be creative. They just lined up and they played simple football, and it was methodical, and they moved down the field, and they didn't need explosive play after explosive play. They just needed rhythm. That's the thing I'm finding out about this offense, I think, as we all notice, is when Nebraska either gets behind the sticks or they have a hiccup, they're done. They're done. They are not going to be able to recover in the scope of a series, and they need rhythm. And when they get out of rhythm, that play calling goes all over the map. But I really want to know what the offensive philosophy is. Is Dana just running Satterfield's offense with a little bit of tweak? Is he running Rule's offense? What can Dana do? What can he do? Because you can't live this way where Nebraska is just so damn choppy offensively.
Well, to your point, Gary, with Dana's offense, when was the last time you saw Nebraska attack the middle of the field with the passing route? That has been Dylan's weakness. Whenever he throws interceptions, it seems to be over the middle of the field for the most part. There's the one against Michigan, but that's been his weakness. But the air raid is about the air raid philosophy, I should say, because Dana's not running the air raid. But like the air raid, it's supposed to make them cover 30 yards of field all over the field. And if I'm a defense, I am not worried about Dylan Raiola going over the middle of the field, because whenever he does, he tends to throw interceptions, and Dana seems scared of going over the middle of the field. Makes it a lot easier whenever you're always defending the boundary.
Forgive me. Go ahead.
So, yes. I think another conversation here is against really good corners in this league. Nebraska's wide receivers are getting eaten up again, where they're not getting downfield. So the deep ball in Latif and Raiola, that deep ball, shelve it for the rest of the year, okay? No one respects it. They're going to keep everybody in front of you and then go make a play. The wide receivers are not blowing people off the line of scrimmage, and they're getting eaten up a little bit. The middle last night, Elijah, and we may have talked about this because I thought Lindenmeyer would be a huge key. Now, there were plenty of times, even when Dylan was still in a quarterback, 44 was open in the middle of the field, and Dylan didn't get to a second read. That middle screen at the beginning of the fourth quarter where Latif fumbles the initial snap, there was a middle screen set up for Barney. Now they had the numbers, not saying that he would have housed it. Rule referenced it after the game, but they did have the numbers. They caught USC in a good situation. But you're right. They try a lot of stuff outside of the hash marks to use the boundary as protection. Like if our guy's not going to catch it, it's going to go out of bounds. I don't know why the middle of the field is not more open. Or it is open, but why it's not more utilized more.
Wouldn't you just wear the hell out of teams with 44? Wouldn't you make a defense stop Lindenmeyer? I mean, what a catch he had for 23 yards, but it's so few and far between. You get to him once a game, but never go back to it. And if you stab a defense a few times with that, maybe it opens things up on the outside. I don't know.
And I thought once Latif came in the game that Lindenmeyer could have been his best friend. You see how USC was playing once Latif came in? They were going single coverage on the outside. Their linebackers and even their safeties were attacking downhill to stop the run and stop the screens. If you went play action to Lindenmeyer, I think you could have had something, but you didn't utilize that. You didn't take the reins or the handcuffs off of TJ Latif. And again, as I said at the start of the show, I don't know if that's a Dana thing. I don't know if that's a TJ thing, but the way the offense changed made it impossible for Nebraska to win that football game. You weren't going to go beat USC, especially playing from behind, by running the football and calling screens. Every defense is going to get that figured out. They're going to attack downhill. and they're going to stop you short of the chains. You needed some sort of attack through the air through either play action or just saying, hey, we got a guy in Isaiah Hunter we trust. We're going to let TJ Lateef put one up to him, let him go make a play. You didn't trust the playmakers you had on your offense. You went, okay, we're going to make sure we don't make a catastrophic mistake. We're going to hand it off to Emmett. We're going to call a screen to the outside. We're going to live with 4 yards and punt it away. The offensive play calling was not to go win the football game in that fourth quarter. And is that Dana? Is that TJ? I don't know. I'd love to hear from Dana come Tuesday about what happened. But the offensive play calling gave you no opportunity to go win that game.
Yeah, that's why I wonder. And you know, these are where you don't get the coordinators after the game, because I got some questions for Butler as well.
Yeah.
Is you know, when they call a play for Dylan, and this goes with experience, was as his 22nd, 21st, or 22nd start. You know, they've got options on plays, so he can change in and out of stuff. And I'm wondering if Lateef's play call was one play. But again, there were opportunities, and I know Lateef was thrown into the fire, and I would just ride with him this week. I don't need to hear what Dylan's status is. I would just say, you know what, regardless, Lateef is our quarterback, so we can prep him up. But God, there were times where on RPOs, if Lateef keeps it, instead of handing it off to Emmett, big things would have happened. And
Well,
that probably a little bit of what Bill said earlier. Lateef has gotten reps as the backup. Guys that were on the field last night with him, he doesn't rep very much with. So he probably doesn't rep very often with Emmett. So they probably are not in sync in the RPO game, because he's probably running the RPO with Mosey and Nelson, you know, and Emmett is much different on that thing, but it is what it is. I go back. Nebraska last night couldn't win the trenches. And it
showed up with who you're comfortable and familiar repping with on that 4th and 1, where you play bumper cars and Emmett falls down half a yard shy. As much as Lincoln Riley went Lincoln Riley last night, where they're ripping off 15, 14, 13, 15-yard runs, and then they get into the red zone and settle for 3, or they false start thanks to a incredible fan base. When push came to shove, his adjustment was, let's go back to what worked for us a year ago against Nebraska, what worked for Cincinnati, what worked for Michigan, and let's get the quarterback run game involved. On his touchdown run, it was really impressive to see how they tricked Nebraska's defense with guys going from the offensive line and countering, but you had the quarterback keep on that zone read, and he found his way into the end zone from 16 yards out. So if I'm a USC fan right now, I'm not quite sure how I feel about my head coach, because the guy just doesn't stick with what's working. I mean, even at halftime, he's like, well, we got to get football. We got to start throwing the football some more. Like, dude, you're cranking out 8.5 a carry.
Well,
I just don't get it.
It didn't have to be some type of head coaching wizardry last night. When you're getting, and I mentioned this again on the show last night, Michigan is the one that exposed Nebraska. I said at the beginning of the season, that was the game that was going to expose Nebraska. If offensive lines could push around Nebraska's run defense, then teams are going to run the ball against Nebraska. And so for all of Lincoln Riley's, I'm not going to say alleged or supposed, for all of his offensive genius, it was just, well, we're getting 4 yards before they touch us, so let's just keep running. And not only are we getting 4 yards before they touch us, we're getting another 8 to 10 after that. So it was pretty simplified, USC's offense. Yeah, they got the ball in Maeva's hands a little bit more to run, but he can do that. He didn't have a great game through the air, but he ran smart. And when he runs, he has the ability to get you 10 to 15, which he did on 3 occasions. He had 10 plus yards on a carry, including the touchdown. So I think that the game plan was, well, we just survived the opening drive. Nebraska will go back we'll crawl into a hole, and eventually we'll turn the game around in our favor in the second half. And that's what happened. But it was simplified. It wasn't offensive genius.
Yeah, he can their ability to spread Nebraska out and then to run the ball. I mean, they caught Nebraska. They all of a sudden would look at a 3-man front, and what do? They just run between the tackles, and it's King Miller. There's two big things here from last night, and this is a persistent thing with this coaching staff and this head coach in particular, but maybe just the program in general in year 3, is can Nebraska expose an opponent's weaknesses and take advantage of their tendencies? It just doesn't seem like that. It seems like Nebraska just plays, and if they have better talent, they're going to have an advantage instead of exposing another team like we're just talking about USC spreading Nebraska out and doing whatever they'll do running-wise. Running the football, this is a thing where I wonder if this is on a separate note, and I would be very curious on you guys' opinions on these two things. One, about Nebraska's inability to expose other teams' weaknesses and tendencies. Is John Butler being an NFL guy? And I know he was here last year, but now he's in the driver's seat as the coordinator, an NFL guy, where you're going to fight to take away the pass, and you're going to let people run in the NFL. Because Nebraska does a really good job in coverage. They were good last night. There were a lot of tight windows. Maeva didn't throw a lot of catchable balls, but there were a lot of tight windows. But you've seen this where Nebraska, they protect the deep pass almost to give up the run. And that's kind of an NFL thing.
Well, and one of the things that kind of feels NFL-esque to me is I feel like John Butler, he gets in his bag whenever he gets an offense to 2nd and 7 or greater. Whenever they make a good play on first down, it almost feels like the Vic Fangio type of tree where, hey, teams are going to move the ball on you. If they're at 2nd and 3, okay, they've made a great play, and they're going to get the first down. Whenever they get him a little bit behind the sticks, I feel like he gets a lot more creative with his pressures, gets a lot more creative with his coverages. They try to take advantage if they can get that stop on first down that's 1 or 2 yards. And then he starts getting a little bit creative. But whenever the offense is moving, the offense is in rhythm, you saw it last night, they had no answers. But once they did get USC to that 2nd and long-ish, they changed up their defensive philosophy, and they did a really, really good job making sure that was the end of the drive, wherever it may have been. The problem being it was USC reeling off 4 straight 15-yard runs, getting inside the red zone, and then they get him to 2nd and 8, and okay, let's get off the field here in field goal range. But I think that's where John Butler makes his hay as a defensive coordinator, is once they get a positive play for the defense on first down, then he gets a little creative on 2nd and 3rd down, which is what I feel like I see a lot on Sundays.
Philosophy-wise, it is an NFL philosophy. You can't take everything away, so what scares you most? And the Lincoln Riley reputation and persona of being a wizard at play calling and getting downfield and giving up tons of yards and points. I mean, Nebraska did their job on the back end with really some strong play. I know they got flagged a couple of times, but they played well enough to win in that back end. Up front, you got to ask yourself, can you win in the Big Ten moving forward if your philosophy is going to be, well, we better survive the run versus stop the run? And right now, they're not stopping the run. They haven't all season. They've got different personnel. You've got to look at who you're bringing in and what body types you have. I mean, it almost reminds me of, what Nebraska had in the Big 12 up front, and then they get shifted into the Big 10, and you know how bad that went. Ask Melvin Gordon. With the body types you had up front trying to stop the run game in the Big 10. You weren't equipped to do it, so you better go get couple of big dudes that go 3 bills that can at least anchor it out. You had that a year ago. You don't now.
No, there's they're young up front, but now we're 9 games into the season, and they don't really have. I mean, Davis and Winery are your best defensive linemen. They have too many guys that disappear, like RVP and Lenhart. I also think part of their front 7. And I know stat-wise, Javen Wright's having an incredible season. But guys, outside of, Shavers made a splash play last night, how many times do linebackers make plays where you go, whoa? It seems like linebackers disappear, their eye discipline, they get lost, and I don't know. It's rough on the front 7. And when this is the game, when it's a trenches game, But you're asking a lot on those back end guys to make tackles when you lose one-on-one battles up front, and all of a sudden that running back is through the gap.
They're out of position. They're a step or two off, and they're a step or two late, especially in the run.
It starts the defensive line. Against Northwestern, I thought the defensive line did a much better job keeping offensive linemen off of linebackers. Last night, USC's offensive line, for the most part, whenever they were gashing, they were getting to second level and they were killing linebackers. And it was Rex Guthrie or Deshaun Singleton one-on-one with the running back. And hey, to those guys' credit, they did a much better job making the tackles when they needed to. But you can't have 10 plays a game where the offensive line blocks it perfectly, and here's a running back one-on-one with a safety 10 yards down the field. That's not a winning formula. And that's what was happening last night, was whenever USC was gashing Nebraska, they were getting hands-on linebackers, and that running back was going untouched until he got up to the safeties.
Yeah, that's the deal I noted. They're 4 yards downfield before Nebraska's defense touches the running back. Not every play, but on some of those big plays, it's an easy offensive line surge that creates havoc for Nebraska's defense and the secondaries and the linebackers and all of that. They're not getting point of contact at the line of scrimmage. And so therefore it's easy for teams to go for it on 3rd and short or 4th and short as well. Nebraska doesn't do a good job of clogging up the middle, and they don't have the defensive tackles. I'm wondering, as we're talking about this, so much of the focus has been on what's the development of the offensive line, who's going to be there, who should be playing, who should be contributing. What about the defensive line? What's the development there? Who are the young players in the pipeline along the defensive line that either A, should be getting reps or should be difference makers that aren't?
Well, you've got Malcolm Simpson that's, not been healthy this year. You've been in search of landing a couple of difference makers on the defensive line. I mean,
they should have done something at the trade deadline then. I mean,
I'm reporting here. I don't have an answer for you. Bill's gonna put his Davy Lopes jersey on and ask to meet me out in the parking lot.
How about Will Smith? 6 straight World Series titles.
Nice.
Yeah. Here's the thing about the defensive line. We knew this was going to be a problem. You have a brand new position coach in college football is coaching those guys. They just lost a Ty and a Nash. And guys that are supposed to carry the weight until the younger guys pick up and get introduced, they disappear. Riley Van Poppel, Cam Lenhart, Elijah Judy. They flash, they'll make plays, but you need them to be really good over about 30 snaps, not good at 2 snaps and then disappear in 3 snaps. And it just is, it's disjointed up front, and they're not, they just don't have any. It makes us appreciate last year is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you hide that, because you can't, because, good. Another thing about USC, and, this is brought up, and this is a bitch of Nebraska of teams that have a week off before they play them. USC did a really good job of scouting Nebraska. They saw where Nebraska's weaknesses were, and they dialed up some stuff to catch Nebraska. And I think from here on out, UCLA, Penn State, and especially Iowa, that defensive line going to have to be ready. It's just because they didn't play a ton of guys last night because they couldn't, because USC plays more tempo than Northwestern. It just, they don't have stoppers, guys that just cause havoc and allow other people to eat. It's just too many times Nebraska's defensive linemen are getting eaten, and it just takes the entire front 7, it seems like, down with them. And credit to King Miller. I mean, he went for 7+ a pop last night, but they weren't doing anything outside of when they'd run counter, and they kind of got away from it, and that's kind of their bread and butter. They ran toss at the beginning of the game, and I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to see Nebraska run more toss. They just turned, and they quarterback handoff game to King Miller and said, between the tackles, buddy, just run. Yeah. And he got skinny in the holes a couple of times, but it just, when it's demoralizing when you can't stop somebody from running the football. And guys, we wake up this morning, Nebraska gave up only 21 points to USC. If we would have said this last week with all of us together, or all week long on the Average Joe show, or yesterday, hey, if I tell you that Nebraska's only going to give up 98 yards passing, is that what might have ended up with? Is it 98? 98 and then 21 points total. If I would have told you that, you would have said, man, Nebraska's 7-2 and people are still on O Street partying.
Well, Gary, there was more than just that. Most of the stats you go through last night, you list them off. You say, I think Nebraska credited with 3 sacks. USC only picks up 1. Nebraska 190 yards on the ground, less penalty yards. They won the time of possession by 6 minutes. I mean, so many factors you go down that we circled throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
I said I thought Nebraska's running game had to match what USC did. I think they ended up 14 yards short of USC, but that's close enough to matching what USC did on the ground. The sacks, the penalties, the time of possession, so many things you went down the list saying if Nebraska can do this, 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 and this, they'll win the football game. They handled most of them. They were even in turnovers. It was so many things. It was just the fact that when the fourth quarter rolled around and your backup quarterback was in, USC knew what was coming, and you couldn't adjust and make plays. I will say, we haven't talked about this yet. Upon my rewatch, I was slightly less impressed, but they still had one of their better days of the season. The offensive line did a good job. And I know the play where Dillon gets injured was the 1 sack that they're credited for. That's a play where it's a 2-man route, and Dillon's got to get the ball out. You can't hold on to that one with only 2 guys in the route combination. You got to understand, hey, I checked into a bad play here. I need to live to fight another day. That was bad on Dillon's part, not the offensive line. I thought the offensive line, were they great? No. Was it one of their better days despite how patchwork they were? Yes. Want to give them their flowers. We've complained and bitched and moaned about the offensive line all season long. It was a good enough night from the offensive line to go win that football game.
Yeah, they played well enough. Defense played well enough.
Yeah, they for the second straight game, they got the ball out quick. I mean, when Dillon was in there, and guys, it wasn't like Dillon was blowing up the world when he was playing. I mean, he wasn't the star that Nebraska needs under center in games like this, but they did a lot better job. I think it was 2.2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So the play calling said, okay, we're adjusting post Minnesota. The ball is getting out quicker. Dillon, you got to follow the script. And he was able to do that. He didn't hold it as long. I thought on the play that injured him and you know, maybe changed Nebraska's season is okay, it's bad. The injury on TV looks bad. I guess NBC showed it over and over. That's what I was being told as it was happening.
About three replays, but it wasn't like.
Here's the thing about Dillon, though. Man, you know the pocket is collapsing. I would think once you got touched, that ball's got to come in where its ball security is number 1. Not making a play, throwing it away. You know you're going down because it was collapsing. Ball security's got to be number 1. Because if Nebraska doesn't fumble there, because the interception by Marshall, they took over on the 33. Is that correct?
36.
36. Is if you so you lose your quarterback, that sucks, but you didn't lose the football. And there's still an opportunity to put points up. And the ball security, and the injury happened after he went down. So it wasn't like the injury happened and then it was like, oh, and the ball comes free. Man, you got to hold on to that football there. But
you're right on with
it's goddamn Groundhog's Day around here, unfortunately.
It is. And yeah, you needed to chuck it into the 5th row, get rid of it. You hang on too long. You're trying to make a play, you fumble, sack, strip, rinse, repeat, right? I mean, it's just
their offense has no identity. Their identity is 21. You are having an incredible season. Go make something happen.
And he does.
Nebraska almost had last night a 200-yard rusher and lose a game. And that's only happened twice in the history of Nebraska football. That almost happened last night. I mean, can you imagine this offense this year, guys, where it doesn't have like a true identity and it almost like they call plays not to make a mistake? If Emmett wasn't having the kind of season he's had, only 4 players in the history of Nebraska football have reached 1,000 yards in the first 9 games in 30 years. That shows you what kind of a year he's having. And he's your whole offense, essentially.
He's so much fun to watch and cover because of his heart and his ability. and how he turns 2-yard gains into 5-yard gains or 2-yard losses into 3-yard gains. He is just somebody that the fan base is absolutely obviously rooting for, but he's somebody that you're like, okay, he's memorable. He's memorable because of his heart, his effort, and what he's brought to this offense. Because it is, you're not going to be able to squeeze a drop out of the offense if he doesn't get going. They have learned to accept that, all right, the offense will go as Emmett goes. The thing that is problematic moving forward is last night you had a real chance, if again you don't lose Dylan, where Emmett's got a night going and you were doing enough in the passing game with Dylan to at least be an offense that was threatening. And I know it was a bit of a slog, but you were able to make some plays in the passing game before your quarterback went out. Pairing that with the run game moving forward into this month, that's kind of my, you screw the pooch against USC, another missed opportunity, whatever. What's the rest of the year look like? I mean, how does this thing turn? How do you finish out? How prepped do you get? What is reality moving forward at 8:00 next week at the Rose Bowl in Happy Valley with Iowa Black Friday? Do you finish 6-6? Do you squeeze out 2 more wins? Do you get 1 more? How does this season turn? Because that's a bigger conversation.
How quickly can you install the triple option with TJ Lateef? That's my question.
Good. Now we're off to thinking clearly here.
Doleman's tutoring is complete.
They're going to have to figure things out, because if it is a high ankle sprain, I think is the preliminary report that I had. If that's what it is, that's going to linger. Remember at the end of last year, we had there was all the talk that Dylan played the last 4 games hurt or more and gutted his way through it. But a high ankle sprain is not something that you ice it up for a couple of days and it's going to be okay. If he feels 75 to 80% on Saturday, there's a good chance you're going to get twisted around. And I'm talking about Raiola. And if he does play and it's not Lateef, but one little twist of the ankle the wrong way, he's out. I mean, this will linger like turf toe all season, the rest of the season for Dylan Raiola. So TJ Lateef has to be ready at all times. And Dana Holgorsen has to have 2 menus, one in one pocket, one in the other. And I'm going to order off this menu. And if this one's bad, I'm going to go to the other restaurant and it's going to be TJ Lateef and he's going to have to be ready. There's no more. I mean, it's emergency from here on out.
I would do this, I mean, that's a bad injury. You watch the replay, you watch him. It's bad enough that he didn't come back into the game. Okay. Because that's Rule's guy. So I would just start this week for UCLA. Because remember, they don't play next week, so they have a bye. And we don't know what's going to happen with Dylan. And I think we'll find out sooner than later. I don't think this will be end of the week of, hey, what's Dylan's status? TJ, I say right away, TJ Lateef is your starting quarterback against UCLA. Mm-hmm. And you work on a game plan and you work with him in the film room and you work with him on the game plan that he's comfortable with, these plays. And these are the plays that we're going to put into the game plan and we're going to rep all week long with our fellas. And we're going to go out there and you're the quarterback. Not this, well, is Dylan going to play? Is not Dylan going to play? You know what? You got a bye week next week. I would immediately say Lateef is the guy and we'll wait to hear about Dylan and maybe we get him back for Penn State. Maybe we get him back for Iowa. Maybe this is TJ Lateef getting some run. But this week, I would say right from the jump, Lateef's your starting quarterback. Here we go. We're going to work with him all week instead of trying to balance, okay, Dylan's not going to be able to practice today, but he's getting mental reps. No, get the mental and physical reps for the guy that's going to play, that is going to, because you need to win that football game. I mean, you can't go into a bye week and all of a sudden you're staring at 6-4, you're 1-9 in November, and people are going, from the outside, they're throwing haymakers at the Nebraska football program of, you extended your coach. And we're going, it's called stability. And they're going, you're 6-4 and you're 0-2. Lashley was able to do it. How come you can't do it? So that's what I would do going into this week is I would say this morning, I would call TJ Lateef and say, you're the guy, get yourself ready to go back home to play in the Rose Bowl.
The game that you could play, I think, comes with Penn State with does he play, does he not play? It gives you no advantage to play the game throughout the week because UCLA, they don't know what to expect with TJ Lateef either. So they're going to be grasping at straws in terms of what do we prepare for Nebraska's offense. Then once Penn State sees it on film and you have the bye week, that's when you can play the game with them and make them prepare for both the TJ Lateef offense and the Raiola offense. But if you're playing the chess of trying to make a defensive coordinator's life hell, I'm with you, Gary. You roll with TJ this week and say prepare for something you've never seen on film before, aside from some limited series against Akron and Houston Christian, which I don't think should really matter once you get into November. It's going to be a different looking offense with the full starters in. And then you play that game for Penn State and say, will we play Raiola? Will we not? I don't know. You're going to have to prepare for both. That's the game you play if you're Nebraska.
Guess what you're going to get next Saturday? You're going to get Skippy Neuheisel Jr. running the damn football for about 45 attempts with the quarterback run, with the run back run. And while we're talking quarterback, that's super important. What can Nebraska do offensively?
What can they do defensively? Can they stop the run?
What's your answer going to be next week in those wins? I mean, UCLA is leading the Big Ten in their wins when it comes to running the football, about 235 a pop. You about got killed single-handedly last night because they just ran simple and downhill, counters and power at you. Well, UCLA is going to do the same damn thing, and you've shown that since Michigan that it's your weakness. So can you shore that up in a week? You kind of are what you are right now.
The answer is no.
You better give Mania Brown a phone call and bring in a fifth defensive lineman.
The answer is no. You got to keep UCLA below their rushing total, below that 230. But they're going to get 100 yards on the ground. They're going to get 150 yards on the ground probably. You are what you are as a defense, as a front seven, and you're a team that is bad at stopping the run. UCLA knows it. Every team on Nebraska's schedule knows it. It doesn't come down to getting better in a week. It comes down to finding a way to overcome. I look at the offensive side of the football as being this side of the ball that, hey, the best offense here is to limit the possessions, to play some Big Ten West football. And whenever you do get your opportunities, whether it be because of penalty or whether it be because you make one great play on a running play and you're behind the sticks, you got to take advantage. You can't let a 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 9 turn into a first down. You really have to be buttoned up in those situations. But UCLA is going to run the football all over you. Penn State's going to do it. Iowa's going to do it. That ain't getting better.
Well, and the scary thing, guys.
Start drinking now.
Well, the scary thing is 2 of those 3 teams you mentioned, they very much have a quarterback run game element.
Mm-hmm.
Nico and then Gronowski. So,
which you have to have in college, and that's what Nebraska does not have.
Now they have it.
Well, that's another hypothetical.
You'll see a little bit. Again, I know Emmett's the show, but if you go back and I don't think when Lateef played, there were many snaps when he was with Emmett Johnson when he played against Akron and Houston Christian. They ran some 2-back when he was at quarterback. So I don't know if they changed their offense, but you know what is not scary, but very interesting to watch? Is Dana more comfortable with TJ Lateef in his play calling?
Didn't look like it last night.
But I think now that's fair, Elijah. But now you'll have a whole week. Okay. Just that style, maybe not Lateef the person, but just the style, that type of quarterback. Do you feel more comfortable calling plays where you've got to be in a rhythm, or is this whole thing going to be discussed at the end of the year that Dana was caught in the Satterfield rule offense, but it was him calling plays and trying to tweak things? I just wonder where the creativity went, because that's not him.
Game Dog, you are right. UCLA runs for 160. Pre Indiana, during their win streak, they were cranking out 230. Let me correct that. Right now, Nebraska down the list. Who can run it better? Who can stop it better? That'll be the theme Saturday night in La La Land.
The big what if, one of the big what ifs from last night for me is what would Nebraska have done if Emmett had not fallen? They pick up a first down. What would now you're away from the 4-yard line. what would the play calling have been like for the last 65, 70 yards, wherever that ball was when they didn't make it on fourth down? Would there have been less trepidation? And would the playbook been open for TJ Lateef to make some plays? What would the play calling have been like that last drive? Because look, the ending was set up. There was some Hollywood to it, much like Chuba a couple of years ago against Maryland comes in with the ball at the 3-yard line and leads them downfield, and they get down there, and there's the ill-fated pass and the interception, and Maryland goes on to win. But what would the play calling have looked like if you're just relying on athleticism with one timeout and you just got to go make plays? Son, here's the ball, go. Just do what you can. So it wasn't all just Emmett. Would there have been plays that were called that were designed for a running quarterback, a guy who can run, to move the ball as well in that final 90 seconds? And we will never know. But that's what I wonder about with him. Would that have been another weapon, or at least one that Nebraska has not been able to use because Raiola can't run?
Well, I also wonder, Lateef has been part of their 2-minute offense, but how long ago has it been? Now that we're into the season, they're like running regular 2-minute, and that's the number one offense. Like, Lateef's not jumping in there and we're gonna run 12 plays of 2-minute offense. You're gonna get 6. Dylan's gonna get 6. So I don't know. Only having one timeout with a true freshman quarterback in that situation, that was a nightmare.
Can I ask another big what-if question that's been on my mind the past couple weeks? What is different about the last 2 years if Emmett Johnson is rightfully your starting running back? The more I watch Emmett Johnson, the more unthinkable it is to me the lack of usage over the last 2 seasons. With as much of a difference maker as he has been. And has he gotten better? I'm sure he has. But it's still just unthinkable to me how he was left on the bench for the last 2 seasons. In 2 seasons where you really tried to be a team that ran the football a lot.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
I think it was a good thing that Emmett was not the number one starter. Because Emmett is a different running back than he was last year. He is in better shape. Mm-hmm. His vision is so much better. He's able to get skinny through the hole. And another thing he's been able to do, it is very rare with Emmett that people square him up to tackle him. Mm-hmm. He shifts sideways. So I think, kind of when Dana showed up, they started to use Emmett more, especially in the passing game. But I think he was where he was on the depth chart, either not number one or co-number one last year. And he has grown and gotten better in a year. So he's definitely the number one guy. I think the problem is he's too much of the number one guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the last 2 games, he's 55% of Nebraska's offense. He's had 81% of the carries, running back carries. I mean, wow.
That says a lot.
Thank God he's in great shape, and he doesn't look like he's slowing down. But, God, can you just get him through the Rose Bowl and then give him a week off?
Here's the thing with Emmett. I think once Dana got here, Dana was pretty real with him, saying, I need you to do this, this, and this better. And he took that challenge, kind of got a new lease on life, so to speak, with the whole portal decision. But I'll say this, the Emmett we see now wasn't the Emmett that was playing 2 years ago.
But that being said, we know
we still liked what we saw. I agree with you.
And that's a guy he's gonna need some more carries next year. And then it was week 8 last year before he finally started being involved in the offense. I'm not saying he should have been the bell cow that he is this year for the last 2 seasons, but their
evaluation of players. I mean, we're talking go back 2 years, and by the way, he had a great game over in Ames yesterday. Jeff Sims. I mean, their evaluation of players they had on their roster 2 years ago was pretty significantly off on certain guys that got to play or didn't get to play. Mm-hmm. And now we're elsewhere that are playing a lot or not playing much at all. I mean, he's such a strange guy because everybody knows his backstory of how he was recruited, and now he's here. And I really think this, and this is a little bit scary. I think Nebraska needs to start preparing that Emmett won't be here next year.
Oh yeah,
I wouldn't stick.
And I'm not saying anywhere else. I'm saying he's worked himself into some good attention by NFL scouts and NFL teams. You know, Kuiper has him as the 8th best running back available. You know, that are you going to improve on this year? You can come back and say, hey, they're going to spend all this money on offensive linemen. It's going to help me, but you never know. Is this the time to go? And if that's the case, man, you look behind him and then you say, man, Nebraska's got to go into the portal and it hasn't been a place where they've hit home runs. It gets a little bit uncomfortable. So I don't know. If I'm Emmett, I got a decision to make on what I'm going to do about my future. I'm either coming back where you're going to get paid, or I'm going to go to the NFL where, you don't have there's tread on the tires and the clock starts ticking. Yeah. So good on him. He's played himself into that position.
If he has the right people in his ear, NFL stands for not for long, especially for the running back position. You have an expiration date as a running back. Yeah. And hey, is he going to go and be a first-round pick? No. Running backs rarely are. But if you're a third or a fourth-round pick, you have about, 5 seasons in the NFL as a running back typically, where the wear and tear is just so rough. You're going to get through your rookie contract. You'll get signed somewhere else, likely because teams don't re-sign their running backs. And then that's typically it for your NFL career. Amir Abdullah is a huge exception. The fact that he's stuck and stayed in the NFL for as long as he has is a testament to him and how he takes care of his body. But that's not the standard. You got to, as a running back, especially getting this many carries this year, if you have the right people in your ear, Emmett needs to go.
I would prepare 4 more games of Emmett Johnson at Nebraska.
Yep. Well, I think he's played himself into being an all. We've been talking about being all Big Ten. I think he's played himself into being, if not a first team, a second or third team All-American. To do what he's done in the Big Ten with the offensive line, people know what Nebraska's offensive line is all about. So I agree. His resume is so enhanced that he ought to be an All-American going into the draft. And if he gets taken on day 2, that's probably enough of an investment that he's going to have a couple of years to prove himself in the league. If he's a day 3 guy, then you're getting a cup of coffee look in training camps, and you're probably not making as much money there as you could at Nebraska if you came back for another year. So what's his projection going to be, and how high can he go before he decides whether or not to come back? He could make more money at Nebraska than he could in the pros if he's not drafted high enough.
Well, where's the reality of his draft spot, and what's that contractually look like compared to what he did from NIL?
But look at his age. Look at his age.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I mean I think that's the thing, Elijah.
We got 100,000 miles on the vehicle.
And don't try to predict how running back drafting will go in the NFL draft, because it is always a shit show, crapshoot. You never know where a running back's going to go. Like Ashton Ginty being a top 10 pick, you're not going to see that much. Running backs aren't first round guys. Second and third is even pretty rare. Teams know that they can go get themselves a good running back in the 6th or 7th round that they can beat to hell for 4 years and then let him go retire. That's how the NFL operates nowadays. So I couldn't tell you where Emmett's going to get drafted, but he is a guy that will find a spot and be on a roster in the NFL next year.
So this is, as we enter the last month of the regular season,
which is stunning to think about.
I'm about to leave to go do college basketball for a week. I can't believe that basketball is here.
Where's the tour taking you?
Playing Sioux Falls tomorrow at the Pentagon at 12:30. One of the first games that tip off. But this is the last month. So they're making decisions on guys that are going to get raises, guys that they might have to renegotiate with, or guys that they're going to say sayonara. Welcome to Pat Stewart month, right? Mm-hmm. Welcome to the next 6 months or the 6 weeks of Pat Stewart, and we figure out who this guy is and why he's highly paid and why he's here and who's making decisions. Because let's say you lose your number 1 running back, you're going to have to go get a tackle or 2 or other offensive linemen, who knows, defensive linemen. Nebraska is going to have an influx of cash to spend on the 26 class, looking that the 27 class will be heavy star-studded high school. If you're able to flip it and turn the corner, man, you're going to have some decisions to make, and Nebraska is going to have to be really good in the portal. But their running back, the running back recruiting and the running back acquisition makes me a little bit nervous that you would lose a 1K rusher and there's really nobody behind him that's established that you go, oh, that's the heir apparent. Even though I'm intrigued by Mosey.
Yeah.
This is why the extension for Matt Rule, we have not talked about that at all. I think today, in the wake of a loss, which a lot of people were around the tavern tables last night is we extended him for this. He is a corporate CEO, which Nebraska and every program has to have at this stage. Head coaching in college football is about managing the roster and running a corporation and having the right people in the right places in the boardroom and not the locker room necessarily. And that's why I think the extension for Matt Rule is so significant for Nebraska, is because I think he understands where college football is right now and the importance of having a Pat Stewart and all the people that Nebraska has in that organizational chart, which – it used to just be you had a head coach and people who handled positions. I think the fact that Matt Rule is at Nebraska and understands what the landscape is right now, that I think is most significant as to why he got the extension. Winning or losing last night, yeah, they should have won. It would have been much better for optics. But the long run, the long term, the stability is the most important thing.
Well, if you don't win again in November, it's better to extend him before one loss than consecutive losses.
Well, as I look at the roster, and I know this is what they're deciding, I think your wide receiver room moving forward, assuming there's not too much attrition there, feels fine, but that's a big if because there's always attrition. You're definitely going to need a running back. You're going to need to replace your guards, Latovsky and Rocco, but I think you should get back Gatula, Pritchett, and Evans, and you will see how comfortable they feel there. Your defensive line needs an overhaul. Linebackers, I don't know what you do there, but that feels like a room that needs to get better. And then your secondary is, old and experienced. There's going to be a lot of turnover there too. So where you go for the secondary? That's a very, very deep room, but you're losing almost all your production out of that room after this season. So
minimal experience.
It feels like one of those. You feel all right about the offense. You're going to need to go be right on a couple of pieces offensively, particularly a running back and some offensive linemen, likely maybe a tight end. We'll see. But defensively, ooh, boy, they're going to need to put in some work in the portal.
Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Find us 7 days a week. The Dodgers are world champs, as Bill Doleman still has that hat from Oral Hershiser he got.
I'm going to party like it's 1988.
Hey, this year is in the books now. Next year is the Rockies' year.
Stay away from the Viper Room, Bill. Sharpie, have a good trip. Catch Gary and Matt 6 to 10.
Hey, man.
Weekdays on the Zone.
The offseason flew really, really quick, but we hit November and, happy standard time, everybody. Also, happy the sun's going down and it's dark at 5 p.m. time of the year. I don't know. Basketball is here, but this is a pretty important month for Nebraska football. That game, depending on the status of Dylan and Latif and all of that, God, that game at 8:00, because it's on Big Fox again, that game on Saturday night in the Rose Bowl, you can't lay an egg, man. You can't lay an egg going into the bye week, because then you're 6-4. And you're going out to play Penn State, who hasn't beaten a Power 4 team, but that's Rule going back there. And then, of course, what's coming on Black Friday. And if Iowa rolls into Lincoln ranked, that means they will have beaten Oregon at 11 a.m. this upcoming Saturday in Iowa City and gone to the Coliseum and won. So we'll find out a lot about this team and being able to pick up the pieces and not be shattered from last night, but be disappointed. And then try and figure out. This is the thing that we're all trying to find solutions today, guys, is how do they find that elusive needed step forward? Is it a coaching decision? Is it a player? Is it just program might be snake bitten? I know that might be a cop-out, but Jesus, you think about last night. USC's not playing great, a little bit because of what Nebraska's doing. You feel like, man, this is a time they're going to beat them. Places going nuts, blackout, energy, juice, all of that. And you lose your quarterback and your starting tackle. Some of this shit you can't make up. You tell people from outside of Nebraska about things that have plagued Nebraska, and they will go, oh, it's bad football. Well, yeah, there's a lot of bad football in there. But other stuff, you're like, what did we do to deserve all of this stuff? But make it stop. You've got to win football games. You got to win football games at the end of the day.
Can I just bring something up here? If you want to have
one more thing,
if it's a glass half full look at things with TJ, it's a homecoming for him going back out to LA this week. I think he's going to be your starter. If he wins a couple of games, which is good for Nebraska, it becomes a very, very interesting month of December. If he plays a couple games and wins a couple games,
what if TJ finishes the month 3-0?
It's going to be a very, very spicy offseason. I'll just say that. He steps into a tough place, and I don't think he's Dylan. Dana's got to earn his paycheck here in probably the upcoming 2 weeks. We'll see how long Dylan is out for with this injury. But so Dana's gonna have to earn his paycheck. But if he sets up TJ for success, lock in.
This will.
Yeah, but that's good though. That's good. Competition is good here. Threatened competition is good.
Yes, absolutely.
He is going to have a comfortable. If he starts, it will be a comfortable environment for him out in LA. I would imagine that the crowd in LA will be close to what it was at Maryland. There are tons of Husker alums who live west of the Rockies in California, all that. They will travel.
Still?
And if TJ, yeah,
no, they will.
Absolutely.
They will. A lot of them have already bought tickets.
What's that?
Yeah, no, they will. I agree with you. They will travel.
There will be a ton of Husker fans at that game. They've been waiting for it anyway. And UCLA, trust me, has welcomed them with open arms because ain't nobody in Westwood chomping at the bit to get UCLA home game tickets. So TJ Lateef's family is going to have plenty of opportunities to get every cousin they can find to come to the game and wear red. You're going to have a ton of Husker fans already out there. And again, this goes back to Nebraska's brand. I know that there were games that were set with the schedule for this week. But the fact that Fox is putting Nebraska's brand in their primetime game at 8 o'clock when half the country can't watch ESPN anymore, but that's a big deal. That is the value of Nebraska's brand to put the Huskers and UCLA in a primetime spot on Big Fox. Nebraska still matters in college football.
Well, go win it. Go play and showcase another night opportunity for the world to see. Go get a win. See if Nebraska can do it. Iron Horses, Gary Sharp, Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, Bronco fan, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Subscribe, like Average Show Sports Show.
Hey, Gary,
7 days a week.
Gary,
and
I don't
on Twitter as well. AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod.
I don't feel great about my Broncos today. Texans have a great defense. It might be an ugly game, so I think you might be right. We'll see. It might be thumbs down for the Broncos today, but the Chiefs have a big one against the Bills. Haven't beat the Bills in the regular season since COVID.
That's true. That's true. We beat them in the playoffs, but not in the regular season, and especially up there at Orchard Park, where, the last time they were up there, did pretty well in the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, worked out well.
Fellas,
have a good week.
Not last year, though.
Speaking of the postseason, the little team that could did it again.
How many freaking Dodger hats do you have next to your computer screen this morning? I think that's the first I've seen.
At least he's wearing.
They just keep going back and forth.
At least he's wearing his Masters hat. I like that. Yeah. All right, we'll check in again. Thanks to all of you in the stream.
Good luck, Sharpie.
The Average Joes. Take care. We'll talk again.